Well, welcome City Life to another Fifth Saturday online church experience. We've been running with this vision now to make Jesus easy to find in our region for some time now. And part of that is to get out of our church and do service projects all over the community, which we did this morning. And as we pivot to these online services on Fifth Saturdays, we've loved highlighting different ministries we support that make Jesus easy to find, not just in the 757, but all over the world, and specifically today in Brazil. One of the ministries we support is Channel to Brazil, which recently held their banquet in our cafe, offices right across the hall from us on the other side of the building. But at that banquet, they celebrated 40 years of ministry. 40 years. I turned 39 in July. They've been doing ministry in Brazil literally longer than I've been alive. And to just hear even the Cliff Notes version of those 40 years was so impactful. So we wanted to recapture some of that in this interview setting. But Marc, it has to be hard to summarize 40 years with all the events, all the twists and all the turns. So let's start it off simple. For those who may be entirely unfamiliar, could you just introduce yourself, who you are, and what the vision is behind Channel to Brazil?
Okay. Hi, Justin. How are you? Hello, church. It's enjoyable to be partners with City Life and enjoy your love and care for the ministry. And especially appreciation now because you just visited for the first time the ministry and you fell in love with the ministry. Mm-hmm. So, and one of our staff members is Celeste, and she's a member of the church.
Yes.
And she was in Brazil about in 2006, and she fell in love with the ministry. She worked with us as well. But a little bit of my life, it's interesting. It's almost ironic because in 1980 I was just across the street, Christopher Newport. And that's what I was going to college to take social science because I believe that I needed to learn about people, how to manage people, how to help people. And I felt the logical thing to do is just take social science, social work, and to help people. And at the same time, I was working with Youth Challenge. And I felt like the message at the college didn't land right in my heart. It was very uneasy because they completely denied faith. They completely denied Jesus Christ. And I saw some videos of people in East State Hospital, one of my psychology classes, claiming Jesus. And from that point on, they began to think that everybody was a Christian, kind of a little wacko and crazy. And being from another culture, being from Brazil and coming here to study, I felt like almost a mockery, like a respect for Christ. And before I came to America, I felt the whole success of America, it was because Christ, because of Christian faith. And I came over here to encounter that faith, to encounter that prosperity in the education. And somehow college education and the social science didn't line up with my spirit. And I was uneasy about the whole thing. And then with my work with Youth Challenge and the church and the missions program and me talking about street children, talking about the dream, talking about the situation of children in Brazil, people began to get an interest. And it was not my plan to go back to Brazil in 1983. I was here in 1980. But in my hope was to finish college, get some financial support, some backing to begin a program for children in Brazil. And the things changed. And now I understand how things change because there's a verse in the Bible that says, man set his path, but God leads the way. And back down before I came to America to get an education, to get college, to get finances, to get funding, to go back to Brazil, God did the same thing without me having to accomplish college or with the money. So it's kind of interesting how everything began.
Wow. So how did it begin on the ground in Brazil? What inspired you to do the work you do, the specificity of it, working with the street children? How did that come about?
Well, it's 1983. I was here at the local church at the Warwick Assembly, Pastor James Cheshire. And there was a very missions-minded church. I believe it was the largest church in the community. And they were looking at different perspectives, different hopes and dreams and peoples. And they heard about me from Brazil, street children, the problems, so on. And they, Mark, why don't you go back to Brazil? I said, my plan to go to Brazil right now. I said, well, let's take an offering over here. If you have enough money, then you can go back to Brazil, just to look at it, take Troy College to see what's going on. So at the time, I didn't have intentions to begin anything. I was just going to go there, fulfill the church's expectations of see about missions, engage the church into missions. It wasn't very clear at the very beginning that I was going to go to Brazil to open an orphanage or something like that. So it wasn't clear. And but that trip really changed my life because I was doing what was the logical things to do. You see children on the streets, children starving, children begging on the sidewalks. And because I was from Brazil, I knew those things. I knew where to find them. I could go to the traffic lights. I could go to the city dump. I could go to abandoned buildings and I would find the children there. I could go to the beachfront where all the tourists will be passing by and I will be, the children will be there. And then it was kind of a talk between me and God about, Lord, I don't know what to do. I don't have any money to help the children and so on. I'm here. I was a little limbo, a little confused, and I felt the Lord kind of impressed. What do you have in your hands to do? And I said, well, I think it kind of almost in a joking way, I said, I can take bread and coffee to the kids. But not that I wanted to start a ministry, but on the otherwise, I wanted to prove God there was nothing you can do with bread and coffee. And when God said, he said, go ahead and do it. So I did coffee in the morning, I got bread in the morning, I went to the streets, and I still have pictures of that at the very beginning of the ministry. And I have taken pictures. And I went to the sidewalk, and I saw that the children used to draw on the streets and sleep on the streets like this. And then I woke them up in the morning to give them bread and coffee. And pray the sinner's prayer, led them to the Lord. I was feeling good about myself. I was okay, I can walk away and take the mark. Been here, done that, and walk away. Right. And as I walk away, Justin, I heard the most powerful voice that resonates in my heart up to this day. One of the kids, as I was walking out, I felt I fulfilled my mission. And one of the kids shouted, "Sir, are you coming back tomorrow?" And those was like the Holy Spirit. And like Jesus is in his hands, would you come back to me? Would you come back to me to help me? It was powerful. I mean, in ministry, we began ministry because of a reason to help people, with compassion to help people, with sympathy for help people, the right thing to do. But that day, and for about a month after that, I felt as if God had a burden for the children and he was passing that through my heart. Wow. Because all the time she did that, and I saw that scene, I saw like Jesus weeping through me. You know, we all have a natural burden for the lost, a natural burden for the children. But imagine God. I mean, he has a greater burden and love for us because he gave his life for us. So his passion, his love for mankind is we cannot handle. Right. As a human being on this flesh, we cannot handle his love, his spirit in us as a burden for the lost. Right. And that's what happens to me. And I used to go to bed and sleep, and I weep like a baby, and I have to pull myself out of the bed and something, God, I can't handle it anymore, because I really felt God was weeping through me. And that little sentence, that's what changed my whole life. To be doing what I'm doing today with a lot of excitement and joy for 40 years. Wow. Yeah.
And so this work you were doing with the street children, it was shared at the banquet. You were the only person doing it in this way, correct?
Yes, because nobody was working with street children. There was a lot of orphanages to children whose parents could not raise the children and given the orphanage for adoption. So there was a lot across the city, 20 here, 15 there, 40 there, waiting for adoption from sponsors from America, from Europe, from England. And there were kids that are tagged with a father, a sponsor to come and pick them up. But on the streets, kids abandoned, sniffing glue, raping each other, shooting each other, stabbing each other. Nobody wanted to touch those kids. I mean, it was high risk.
Right.
Nobody was touching. And when we first began the ministry, we have to disprove ourselves who we were. And in Brazil, the name of our organization, the ministry is Channel to Brazil for Christ, Children of Brazil for Christ. And he is Channel to Brazil for Christ.
Right.
And we want to make very clear that what our purposes were, what you wanted to do. You wanted to share Christ, be in a holistic ministry, taking children off the streets, give them an education, give them a trade, and meet their needs. But it was hard because the children themselves thought they were going to be abused. There was rumors about kids being kidnapped and taking their kidneys to be sold.
Wow.
And kids to be kidnapped for drug dealing, kids to be kidnapped for raping, for sex traffic. And so you're in the whole package trying to prove ourselves.
Wow.
So we have to prove ourselves with the children, win the trust. We have to prove ourselves to the community to win the trust. And that's where the beginning. That's a very, very hard and humble beginnings. And imagine we began with bread and coffee.
Right.
And we didn't have much to get going. But we surrounded ourselves with a good board of directors, the lawyers, the doctors. And I had some good relationships in the city. And I was able to gather some people that will support and endorse the credibility of the ministry. And so we moved on from first year, second, third, fourth. By the fifth or sixth year, we have the judges calling us, can you take this kid in? Because he's such a troublemaker.
Wow.
And the law in Brazil, you cannot arrest anybody below 16 years old for more than 24 hours. I mean, if you grow up in crime, 16 years old, you're an adult, a very, very dangerous adult at 16 years old.
Right.
But by law, they cannot be arrested. So they're looking for places in halfway houses and orphanages that would deal with those kids. So every now and then we got a call from the probation officer, from the judge, and to help this kid, and the churches as well would call us up. And so it became very kind of the only ones in town that are doing that kind of work. So we had a very high demand after a while.
Wow. So it started with bread and coffee.
Yep.
And you had a phase where you were running an orphanage. It took on many different faces. I know at one point there was a bakery, correct?
Yes.
And what was it called again?
Yeah, it's Okie Dokie Bakery.
And why was that again? I forget.
Oh, it's funny because Troy Collier, which is the founder of Youth Challenge,
Gotcha.
who I worked with, who helped in the very beginning of the ministry to give the credibility in the U.S. because we worked under the umbrella of Youth Challenge for about 5 years. And then the organization, the Youth Challenge, was not set up to handle money to send overseas. So we separated with the same board of directors and call ourselves Channel to Brazil for Christ. So we are the channel to the ministry. But it's the phase we have taken as we began as a home for street children. Then they started the age of, we had youngest 7, 8, 9 years old. So they stay with us for a long time. And they face a lot of discrimination in the community. They could not get jobs, even though they're drug-free, even though they're serving the Lord. They have a little minimum education. And so that's why we created a chicken barn to create business. So we get up at 3 o'clock in the morning with a truck full of chicken. And then we dumped in hot water and chopped the head off. And it's sold for all the local shops in the area on a bike. And then some of the kids they loved when the chickens came in because they're going to see blood. Andre's a little boy that we found in the streets. And he had the most giggle, the best giggle in the world. The chickens coming in because he knew he was going to see blood. And then it wasn't enough finance for us, so we moved to a bakery. So the bakery is something that if we had a good product and a good price, you had a market because there's a demand there. And so we moved into the bakery business, and then we had the chicken barn, the bakery, then we had some goats, and I'll tell some funny stories as well. And we had some goats in the lane for the street children, and all the leftover bread that we had at the bakery that's been no return, we took to the to the goats, and some to the chickens, to the animals up there at CBC. And then one of the boys said, oh, the goat didn't eat today, so he threw a couple of bread to the goat. Another one came in, has anybody fed the goat? Threw another couple of bread to the goat. And then had the goat eat. There's no schedule to feed the goat. Right. And then the goat disappeared. And then 3 days later, we found the goat. He exploded so much bread and yeast. Probably not a good story to tell right now. But, anyway.
Adventures.
But yeah, mix. Yeah. And so that's how we evolved to that. And we did this program for about 17 years. Wow. Yeah.
And I remember it was shared that at some point you wanted to focus on helping them before they ended up in the streets, rather than helping them after they're in the streets. How can we help them before they even get there? And it kind of pivoted your whole vision. Can you speak to that?
Yeah. It's our first action was help the children on the streets. Mm-hmm. And then in the process of 17 years, we began to see their bad experience in life about stabbed, abused, raped, and a lot of bad experiences. And we began to ask us questions, where those kids are coming from. So they come from broken homes, they come from school dropouts, and they were rejects, and they will end up in the streets. And the community where we were was kind of a outskirts and the farmland kind of thing. And then the city grew into that area. And some of the kids in the community used to come, can I get into the program? I said, no, this program is not for you, because there is a safety haven. They ate 6 times a day. It's breakfast, snacks, lunch, snacks, dinner, snacks, just to break the fear of going hungry for them to be able to listen to you. So the kids across the street, you come and ask, can I get in the program? No, you can't get in, because this is for abandoned children who sniffs glue, on drugs. And then 6 months later, the kids will knock on the door and say, I'm sniffing glue, can I come in? So with poor, the God is the stomach, is the primary source of need. They'll do anything to eat. And then we began to see the children that they school dropouts, they family rejects, broken homes, and everything is in front of us. It made sense for us to stop the flow of kids going to the streets by help with the community. So at the time, we were working with 40 young boys, street children. So when they began to reach out to the community, in the first year, we got 100 kids. And then the second year, 150. And right now, we have 260.
Right now?
Right now.
Wow.
We could increase more, because there is 100 people on the waiting list waiting to get in, because they know once they get in, their path for the successful future is lined up. Because I have taken kids whose parents are still in prison for crime. And as Nael, he came to the program, age of 11 years old. We worked with him all the way through a trade profession. Today he owns his motorcycle shop in a community. And some of the drug dealers comes in and say, can you adulterate the VIN number of this motorcycle? He said, no, I won't do that. Wow. He's under threat. He said, I'm not going to do this, because next day the police are going to be behind me looking for me. And then he's very impressive, because he keeps a very high moral standard. And some of the guys that's asking told me this before. Said, why did you get this moral standards? I learned at CBC. I learned how to be a good man, Christian man, faithful man, moral man, spiritual man at CBC. So I'm not going to do a motorcycle. I'm not going to change. So he has a very successful entrepreneurial business in the program in the area. And a lot of people come to fix his motorcycle. He works for a company. Now he has his own shop. Wow. And then we have another young girl. This is a remarkable story of Adriana. Adriana has one of the most shocking stories I ever heard in my life. She was coming home from school, and she saw her house full of people. And she didn't know what happens. And they didn't let anybody go into the house. Let her go into the house. But somehow she skipped the crowds, walked in. What she saw was her father hang on the hook of a hammock. And she was traumatized from that point on. What happens, the family, usually the man leaves the family, but in this case, it was the other way around. The woman left the family. And the man was so depressed, so down that he took his life away. And she saw all of that. So she was a kind of a lower middle class. And she was raised by someone in the favelas, in the Islam community, a very poor house. I have pictures of her in a house with no plastering, no ceiling, no running water, raised by this poor person that had compassion to raise her from the street. And she was raised by those guys. But she came to the program and she really applied the message of a faith in Jesus Christ, of working hard, good discipline. She was a beautiful girl. And she worked for different kind of a manicure and pedicure. So she began to clean people's feet and learn how it is done. And then she went home, and her husband and her were students in the program. And she went to people's house to do feet and polishing, cleaning, and so on, makeups. And then she set up a shop in her house and got off the work and built the clientele. She began to do eyebrows. And about 2 years ago, she was invited to participate in a beauty festival in South Africa.
Wow. And
give a class there. That's Adriana.
Wow.
And she began this age over here.
Uh-huh.
And we believed that she has a potential. She's a God chosen. She has a future in front of her. We tell her, we expected, we taught, we educated her, and that she is now up there.
Wow.
That's a tremendous entrepreneur. She does counseling. She's not even do the work anymore. She teaches people how to do. She has a school teaching people how to do eyebrows.
That's remarkable.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, this is some of the results of the outcome of the children that has been in the program. And we have got way more success with the children that we prevented from going to the streets, who would become a street child, to become entrepreneurs, lawyers, accountants, HR, pastors, ministries, and people studying Israel right now. So all of those things, because we invested at a very young age, and we prevented them from ended up on the streets and being abused and raped, which lowers their self-esteem to below zero. They feel distrustful about everybody around them, and it's very hard for them to progress farther down the line.
Right. Yeah. Wow. So it's remarkable hearing about the kind of fruit you can see, not just hear about, but see, like in even the difference in age when you've been serving for decades, these children that are now adults chasing their dreams. But you've been following a dream God has given you for decades now. And I know from the stories told at the banquet, you've been slandered, you've been robbed. There had to have been low points where you're thinking, I'm out, I'm done. And how did you get through those moments to keep running the race God has for you?
There is a Bible verse that says, after done it all, stand. In every difficult time in your life, there is a low. Throughout the Christian walk, it's going to be lows. But if you persevere through those lows, you're going to get to the high. They don't endure. The difficult times don't endure. I have 40 years in ministry, so I don't live in lows all the time. I don't have headaches all the time. There is joys, there is good results, you can enjoy the fruits of your labor, and there are difficult times. But during those difficult times I didn't quit. I think because of two things. I knew that if I quit, about the consequences of my quitting would impact about 120 people, 10 staff members, 20 staff members. It would be devastating for me to feel like I quit it, and I hurt so many people. So that's one point. And I faced with that situation so many times. A lot of pity party, a lot of oh Lord, I'm giving up. Oh Lord, all those little victimized momentums that we do have from time to time. Right. And but I think the way to overcome that is just is just to say that I'm not giving up. I'm not giving up, and I will endure, because I always have in my mind a picture of one child.
Wow.
And one or two that are really, I'm working so this child is going to get the most benefit in the world. And so I believe that passion, that love keeps me going, keeps me pursuing the next step. And knowing that the difficult time is going to go away. But to go through difficult times, it's sometimes it's hard, it's discouraging. But you just close your eyes, grind your teeth, knees down, chin up, and keep on pushing.
Right. Put you in good company too. You think of Moses, Elijah, all the people in the Bible that went through seasons just like that.
Yeah. But there are moments that you have to walk by yourself. It's good to have family, friends.
Right.
It's all about people, the people you help. It's all the people that you connect with. It's all your connections. It's all about people. I mean, God gives finances not for you. God gives finances for people. And but there are moments that you walk just you and Him, so they can develop your character, your faith, your perseverance, and He can trust you with more.
I know I speak for the church and obviously hundreds of kids in Brazil saying, we're glad you didn't at any point give up on that dream and you kept chasing, you kept persevering. But thanking you on behalf of the church, you have the church, you have their ear, you have their eyes as they're watching this online service. Is there anything, if you could say something to City Life Church, what would you say? How would you challenge them?
I believe one of the most powerful things that I ever heard in my life is I was married before for 16 years with Lois. She was the director of the women's home. And I was the director of the men's home, a youth challenge. And she passed away in 2003. And at deathbed, she's passing with cancer. She looked at me and she said, as a Christian would cry for when they know they had so much credit that they never used. There's so much of a blank check available to them that they never used. And I think the church today is a tremendous potential of God to change the world, and we cannot sleep on those blessings. We need to get involved in the community, like you're trying to do.
Right.
I need to do my job. Everybody needs to do your part. There's always somebody across the street that needs a glass of water, or somebody across the street that needs a good morning. Always somebody across the street that needs somebody to come to my house, let's get to know you. That's all it takes. Christianity is just so simple that overpasses a lot of intellect. And so that's the message for the church. It's just realize the potential you have in your hands to change the world.
And I think of when I left that banquet, it was just that I was inspired to dream bigger. Not just keep dreaming, but aim higher, dream bigger, have faith for wild and amazing things, because it truly is incredible what you've done for 40 years. And we are so thankful. Not just that you've been doing it, but that you also spent the time to share it with us. But I would be remiss as well to let you go without asking on behalf of the church, how can we be praying right now in this season for CBC? What can we be praying for specifically?
Okay. In Brazil, we have a lot of children that needs help. I know how to help them. In 40 years of ministry, I know I have is a cook cutting. Is a way. I have a way. I have the pattern. I have the method how to help them. But I need people that can help me here in the U.S. People that can volunteer with folding letters. People that can volunteer with social media. People that can volunteer with marketing.
You need you need to be able to clone Celeste.
Yeah. And I need to be able to get more partners that can become dream builders. We have a program called the Dream Builders, because all of us are product of a dream. Our parents dreamed for us to become pastors or lawyers or doctors, and have a community that supports us, a good school, good roads, good government, good governance. But in Brazil, don't have none of that. The children is below zero, trying to fight for themselves. Parents don't have any dreams for them because they never achieved anything for their lives. So the ministry and the partners is standing in the gap to make a difference for those kids' lives and to help them to dream, invest, and expect in their future.
Awesome. Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much again, Mark. Thank you, City Life, for joining us. I hope you are as inspired as I am and everybody else that hears Mark's story. You are truly a living legend. It's an honor to office with you in this building, to support you. So City Life, I hope you were inspired, encouraged, not just to dream big, but to continue as well, to give towards missions as we're able to support many ministries like Mark's that are making Jesus easy to find all over the world. So again, thanks for helping us do it in our region this morning, and let's continue to sow into God's kingdom all over the world. God bless.